The mining station orbited a dead planet, its automated systems humming through another routine day when the breach alarm shattered the silence. Captain Vera of the Altarian Defense Corps pressed her six-fingered hands against the control panel, watching the security feeds with growing horror. Something had broken through the outer hull. The creature moved through the corridors like liquid shadow, its form shifting between solid and ethereal states. Vera had never seen anything like it. In her 40 years of service across 3 different sectors, the thing seemed to absorb light itself, leaving only darkness in its wake as it hunted through the station's maze of tunnels and chambers. Her crew scrambled to evacuate the lower levels, but the creature moved faster than their retreat. One by one, the security feeds went dark as it consumed the very electronics that powered them. Vera's elongated skull ridges furrowed with concentration as she tried to track its movement, but the entity defied all conventional sensor readings. "Captain, it's heading toward the civilian quarters," reported her communications officer, his voice tight with fear. The Altarians prided themselves on their advanced technology and superior intellect, but this threat seemed beyond their understanding. Vera made the hardest decision of her career. "Seal the emergency bulkheads. Contain it to sections 7 through 12. But Captain, there are still civilians trapped in those areas. Better to save who we can than lose everyone." Among those trapped was Dr. Emma, a human xenobiologist, who had been studying the station's mineral samples. She had been working late in her laboratory when the alarms began, and now found herself sealed behind emergency barriers with something nightmarish hunting in the darkness beyond. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most species regarded them as primitives, barely worth notice except for their strange tendency to volunteer for dangerous assignments that others avoided. They seemed to possess an inexplicable drive to help others, even at personal cost. Emma had felt the condescending attitude since arriving at the station. The Altarians treated her with polite dismissal. The crystalline vegan traders spoke around her as if she weren't present, and the gas-form entities from the outer rim simply ignored human existence entirely. But she had persisted with her research, driven by the human curiosity that her colleagues found so puzzling. Now, as the lights flickered and died, Emma heard something moving in the corridor outside her lab. The sound wasn't quite footsteps, but rather like heavy liquid flowing across metal flooring. Her hands shook as she backed away from the sealed door, knowing that her species' primitive technology offered little protection against whatever prowled beyond. The laboratory's emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across her equipment. Emma's mind raced through everything she knew about unknown entities, but her extensive training felt inadequate against something that defied scientific classification. The creature seemed to exist partially outside normal physical laws. A grinding sound echoed through the walls as something began forcing its way through the sealed door. The reinforced metal, designed to withstand explosive decompression, buckled and warped under pressure that shouldn't have been possible. Emma grabbed a plasma cutter from her workbench, though she doubted it would prove effective against whatever was coming. The door finally gave way with a shriek of tortured metal. The creature that oozed through the opening defied description. It had aspects of liquid, shadow, and something that hurt to look at directly. Emma's human eyes, adapted for a bright yellow star, struggled to process what they were seeing. The thing seemed to absorb photons while simultaneously generating its own anti-light. She closed her eyes, sure the creature would devour her, but instead of the expected agony, she heard the distinctive whine of a military-grade energy weapon firing at maximum output. "Get behind me, Doc." Emma's eyes snapped open to see Jake, one of the human maintenance technicians, standing in the doorway with what appeared to be a jury-rigged energy cannon. The weapon looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and mining equipment, but it was pouring devastating firepower into the creature. "How did you get here?" Emma shouted over the weapon's noise. "Maintenance tunnels," Jake replied, not taking his eyes off the target. "These things never think to check the service corridors." The creature writhed under the sustained assault, its form becoming more solid as the energy discharges forced it into a single state of matter. Jake's improvised weapon was overheating, steam rising from its cobbled-together components, but He maintained fire until the creature finally collapsed into a puddle of ordinary organic matter. "Is it dead?" Emma asked. Jake kicked the remains with his boot. "Dead as last week's synthesized protein." Captain Vera arrived with a security team 20 minutes later, finding the two humans calmly discussing the creature's probable biology, while Jake's weapon cooled nearby. She stared at the remains of something that had torn through her station's best defenses, now reduced to inert biomass by improvised human ingenuity. "How did you know that would work?" Vera asked Jake. "The maintenance," technician shrugged. "Didn't know. But most problems have solutions if you think about them differently. This thing was shifting between energy states, so I figured hitting it with enough concentrated power might force it to pick one. You could have been killed. Yeah, but so could she. And she's been decent to me since arriving. Seemed worth the risk." Captain Vera looked between the two humans, trying to understand their casual attitude toward what had nearly been a station-wide catastrophe. Her species valued logic and careful planning, but these humans seemed to thrive on improvisation and instinctive action. Later, as the station's systems were restored and the investigation began, Vera filed her report with growing appreciation for humanity's unique qualities. Other species possessed superior technology, greater intelligence, or more advanced civilizations, but humans seemed to have something rarer, an inexplicable willingness to risk everything for others, combined with an ability to find solutions where none should exist. The creature, they eventually learned, was a previously unknown form of space-dwelling, life that fed on electrical energy. Jake's improvised weapon had essentially given it fatal indigestion by forcing it to absorb more power than its biology could process. Emma continued her research with new respect from her colleagues, while Jake received a commendation and job offers from 3 different military contractors. But both humans seemed more interested in returning to their work than capitalizing on their brief heroism. As Vera watched them return to their duties, she began to understand why humans were spreading so quickly through the galaxy despite their technological disadvantages. They possessed something that couldn't be programmed or calculated: the courage to act when action seemed impossible, and the ingenuity to succeed where logic said they should fail.